Right, it's finally happened. The one thing that we've been fearing recently. Winston Churchill has been removed. Winston Churchill has been censored by Google, by the woke organization that is Google. They have finally given in terms of what's been happening with the hard left cultural Marxists. We're here with Andre Walker, our contributor, to talk about this. Andre, what is going on? Because we have I'm going to put the screenshot of the Google page so people can see. They got all the other prime ministers, all the other world leaders at the time, and Churchill has been removed.
Well, it's not just the prime ministers. If you look at Second World War leaders, you'll notice that the only one that's missing is Winston Churchill. So you've still got Stalin and Adolf Hitler. And I have to say, out of those three, to consider Winston Churchill to be the biggest racist, I think is really quite a stretch. Look, Maya, here is the deal as far as I'm concerned. Google for many years has been in trouble over its tax position with the extreme left. Now, I personally think that what Google has done in terms of its tax is perfectly appropriate. After all, they base their systems on engineering in San Francisco, and therefore they pay tax in San Francisco. Ultimately, though, they have caved in to the woke brigade because they don't want any more criticism. And this was just a really easy and cheap way of getting these extremists on side with their organisation and shining up their image, but at the expense of a great and decent man that led not just this country, but to the world to freedom from tyranny. I find it absolutely disgusting. And I sincerely hope now that we, on our side, can join the argument for Google to pay its tax in the UK. I must admit, I'm being a complete hypocrite here, Maya, but you know what? I want the tax now.
I want the tax now. I mean, I get the point because on the one hand, previously we've had people like Hayek and others saying that some of the most stupid people out there are the educated ones. And people behind Google and all these woke people in academia, they know, technically speaking, they know their history. They have read it. But they still act like idiots, thinking that it's black and white. You either have heroes or villains, and like historic figures, it's just basically simple. Whereas, they are complicated characters. The Winston Churchill, like all the other leaders, left-wing and right-wing and liberal and whatever, they did some stuff, they said some stuff that, compared to today's standards, it's a bit iffy. But you have to look at the bigger picture, and the issue is not even about Churchill at this point, it's just about these corporations becoming woke and going with what they think is the wave. But don't you think it's not going to go well? Because we had, a couple of years ago, Gillette, they're doing a woke campaign, and they lost millions of pounds in revenue.
Well, I've got to be honest with you, Matt. I genuinely cannot understand this. And largely, not just because they kind of got Winston Churchill, but largely because the hypocrisy that I mentioned before. If you compare him to the other people that were around during that period, this man compares incredibly favourably. Can I just give you a quick story? When I worked in the House of Commons, I did a tour for a group of Argentinian students. Now, as you know, Argentinian people actually really like the British. We get on great, but obviously there is the Falklands issue, which is entirely separate. I took them round the House of Parliament and I showed them the statue of Margaret Thatcher. And what I said to them was this. I said, look, this is a statue of Margaret Thatcher because she was the first woman prime minister. Has nothing to do with Argentina, has nothing to do with the Falklands. So even if you hate her, just bear in mind this statue isn't anything to do with that conflict. And it's horses for courses, because we are not venerating Winston Churchill for his views on Indians. We are venerating Winston Churchill for how he led this country in its time of crisis. And look, the nature of human progress is that if you move forward as a species, as we do, then people in the past will inevitably be backward. What are you proving by pointing that out? Of course, somebody 300 years ago did not have the knowledge and experience that we have. Well, in what way does that make them a bad person? It's just total nonsense. And I have to say, one final thing, Maya, genuinely, I don't see how anybody who is disadvantaged in this country for any reason whatsoever is going to have their life enriched by removing one or two statues based on some middle class, poncy, I don't know, mocha drinking leftist just obsessing about it. It's just a waste of time.
You're right. And I think this whole thing that's been happening over the last week or so, it started in the US, now in the UK. Yesterday we had another situation on the streets in Westminster, and I was there. And if you guys haven't seen the video, I've reported on it, so make sure after this watch that. Is that it's a lot of people on this channel know Zubi. He's a black conservative-leaning rapper. He actually tweeted yesterday, "I preferred it when corporations just sold me stuff without needing to remind me every 12 minutes that they really like black people." Why did they have to keep doing this? Because it's not just virtue signaling at this point. It's they're trying to re-educate the public. If they think it's their job to re-educate the British public, and who's in charge of our culture and our education?
I genuinely don't believe it's about re-educating. I think that the big problem is that the British working class have been a huge letdown to these people. You know, they know that what they want to do with this country, the working class in Britain will never, ever go along with it. And so, you know, when the Berlin Wall fell, essentially what these people decided to do was mount a different campaign, a campaign to destroy the British, to destroy British society and to destroy Middle England. We saw it with Tony Blair. Tony Blair always said he wants to fundamentally change British society. And now what you see, and this is one thing that the viewers of this channel have to watch out against, what they will try and do is pick people off one by one. You know, they will attempt to fire individuals for not agreeing with this. They'll try and take X statue down. They'll try, and it's just this chipping away. And the reason they're doing it is because they know they can't win the election. But what they can do is bully everybody into not standing up for what is right, for what is just, and what is proper. Yeah,
I mean, I think you're right, because it's just they keep pushing it and pushing. And today, again, in the BBC, there's an article talking about how Winston Churchill's granddaughter is actually warning that they may have to put Churchill's statue in a museum. This is just giving up. This is, you know, conceding defeat, saying, "Oh yeah, fine." A couple of hundred woke leaders of these organizations are running the narrative, and the media giving them the platform. And because of these, you know, kids, we're going to have to basically put Churchill's statue in the museum. Where is the consent?
I've got an alternative plan, Maya. I'm talking to you today from Windsor, and I was delighted and proud, by the way, of what the Welsh Guards did yesterday with the Troop of the Colour. But I think what we do is we put the Guards on, whether they be Welsh, Scottish or Grenadiers, and we just give them fixed bayonets, and we just say anybody attempts to attack the Churchill statue, and they will be suitably dispatched. I suspect a group of Coldstream Guards standing around Winston Churchill would discourage people a bit more than Crescinda Dick will.
That's a fair point. Do you think, my view is, because there's a lot of pressure now on Twitter and everywhere about this Google stuff, I think in the next few days, or it could be actually even today, Google might make a U-turn. Do you think they would make a U-turn and just casually bring the image up back again and be like, "Oh, there was a glitch, guys, it was a glitch"?
Yeah, I'm sure they will claim it's a glitch. I'd be very, very surprised if they stand by this and say that they've deliberately taken the picture down. What they might do is, I mean, it may well be that there's been some sort of denial of service attack. I don't believe that, but I'm sure they'll make some such claim. But I've got a question for you. What do you think Google's outcome is here? You know, what are they just going to do this to try and virtue signal a bit and move on, or is it something that's more of a wider problem?
I think it's the wider problem in a sense that I don't think the head of Google or the board decided this. When a company becomes so big, like any organization, there are so many different heads, and it's kind of like Hydra essentially at this point, where one department decides something, and that department is led by, you know, a woke person, and you know, there's no accountability in that sense. This is why some people say dictatorships work, because there's one leader telling people what to do, and I think it's just out of control. I don't think everybody in Google is in favor of that or defending it. They're probably frustrated, some of these people, but you know, there should be some sort of direct route to the top so that we could actually realize, you know, did this decision came from there, or was it just some random department in California just becoming, you know, yeah, let's just do it for banter?
I also noticed that the BBC has started to refer to it as controversial statue.
Yeah.
It's not controversial. That's not controversial at all.
Very controversial.
I know of nobody who does not believe he was the greatest British Prime Minister ever. I literally cannot understand this. It's like this loony situation whereby they want to take down the statue of Robert Peel on the grounds his dad said something off colour.
Yeah, it's
Earl Grey, the man who freed the slaves. They want to take him down as well. The whole thing is completely bananas.
It's like, you know, the BBC publishing an article saying a controversial debate about whether the sky is blue. I'm like, well, it's blue, guys. It's it's not controversial.
And actually, this is something that I think is really, really significant. What you have to remember is, whilst they do try and chivvy away, whilst they do try and threaten, while they do try and intimidate, whilst they do try and change our society, remember something. We took back control of this country, and we're going to continue to take back control. And so I'm not as worried, because I know that we can trust people, not just on this channel, but right across the country, to do the right thing when any election or referendum comes along. And so, all these bully boy tactics, all this year zero Maoist nonsense, it's never going to get them anywhere. We are going to win this.
Oh, you're right. And I think that is why I always on this channel, show the more optimistic side. I know a lot of people are frustrated, especially after yesterday and everything. But don't worry. This is not something that we would lose eventually. And on that note, obviously we're going to talk about what happened yesterday, but for the members of the channel, we're going to talk about yesterday's counter-protests and everything. As of today, we're introducing, Andre and I, a video podcast, which is a longer version of this. We're going to talk about a number of issues, and if you want to get to that video, then you check out the link in the description, or find that website, the URL, youtube.com/mytc/join. Become a member, and you'll get access to a longer conversation, the video podcast that we have, which will be posted straight after this. And so any last few words before we get to the video podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to thank Alan from Doncaster, who found my radio show today because he's a My Tousi channel supporter. Thank you to everybody from this channel who's come over to listen to Talk Radio, not just to my own shows, but also to Julia Hartley-Brew and Mike Graham and the rest of the team. You guys are absolute legends. Really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.